Now, it's time for the Anchormen podcast with Dan Ball and Riley Lewis.
Hey, welcome in, everybody. Dan Ball alongside Riley Lewis. How you been, my friend?
Oh, excellent. Very, very good.
Welcome into the Anchorman podcast, by the way. Another week of... what happened this week in this country?
How would you describe this week?
Let's see. We finally reopened the government after the longest shutdown in history. As a vet, I always say this jokingly, but there's always a little truth in every joke. We celebrated our veterans only one day a year. Lame. Anyway, what else? Let's see. We reignited the Epstein scandal. We screwed over millions of Americans from traveling to get home to funerals and weddings and surgeries and good times because of the shutdown. And it most likely will be screwed in the friendly skies through Thanksgiving. So get ready. It was a fun week. What do you think? What went down this week, Riley? What did you observe? That's the 3 or 4 things I observed.
Well, look, I mean, number one, I think it's just sad that in America in 2025, we can't keep the government open. That's very sad. And, you know, I try not to be too cynical or jaded, but it's been very eye-opening about the priorities of at least half the people in power, right, in Washington, D.C. Mm-hmm. And it's just, I'm trying to stay optimistic, but it's very disheartening, honestly, to see that they're willing to just, I get it, all they care about is winning and making President Trump look bad, but to think that they would jeopardize the lives of, I mean, we had hundreds of thousands of furloughed workers, we had people working without paychecks, people in the military who aren't being paid for their service.
Did you see Trump kept his word, though, and Kristi Noem was handing out the $10,000 checks this week to the TSA agents and air traffic controllers who stayed on the job and didn't go do a sick out. You knew you were going to get paid. You're a government employee. It's not like us civilians here where if our company goes, well, we're shutting down for a bit, we're furloughing you, sorry, no paychecks. You don't get the money back.
Right.
Like you get the money in the government. And for the ones that stayed and kept the planes flying safe and checking for those dirty terrorists, you know, to get on the planes. Thank you. You just got 10 grand richer.
That's right.
Like, holy cow. So anyway.
It's a good news, bad news situation. Yeah. Good news is...
It was a wild week as always.
Yeah, back to business, great. Bad news, not so good news is there's a lot of dysfunction to deal with, and we have to think longer than just the next 2 to 3 years while we still have President Trump in the White House. We need a game plan for the next 5 years, 10 years, 20 years to actually get this country back on the right track.
There's been so much dysfunction for decades, and it was caused by both sides. Yes. Don't get me or Riley wrong. Just because we work at a conservative network and we support a Republican president doesn't mean that we've always seen eye to eye with the Republican Party, which is why you'll hear me, I don't know what you say on your show, but I a lot of times go, I'm not a Republican. I'm a patriot, and I'm an independent, and I'm a veteran. And I'm a concerned father, and I'm a concerned husband. And so, yes, I've got conservative Christian values, which makes me vote for Republicans, but I don't necessarily run around going, I'm a Republican, because there's been plenty of dirty tricks over the decades by Republicans too. I mean, let's be real. We're having to now say America first, and Trump's having to do all these tariffs and try to get the America back on track because of both sides for decades selling us down the river, globalizing everything, working with China, letting everything get shipped to China to be made. This is something that's been going on. I mean, the race relations and the race war, the DEI in the workplace and the military, I can keep going. All the problems that we're facing, you can't just sit there and go, those dang Democrats, because Republicans are right there with them
I
for a lot of this crap.
I agree with that. Although, by the way, what I've been really focusing on lately is it's not Democrats anymore. These are socialists. It's a very, very big difference.
After we saw who they elected a couple of weeks ago.
Not just in New York City,
on Tuesday.
Pay attention to what's happening in Seattle, Washington. They just elected this woman named Katie Wilson, I believe, self-described Democratic socialist. Same platform as Mom Donnie, okay? You look at someone like Governor Gavin Newsom, basically a socialist. Brandon Johnson in Chicago, basically a socialist. I believe Jacob Fry in Minneapolis.
Yes.
Who just gave us, I believe, a victory speech
and Fry,
in Somalian, right?
Well, he's lucky he won because he was up against a Somalian who the Muslim Brotherhood was back in that Fateh guy, who was like a skinny little, Ethiopian runner-looking guy version of Zoran Mandami. That's what I look at him as. Like he looked like him, except 100 pounds lighter, but spewing the same ridiculous hate for capitalism, hate for America, and catering to his homeland of Somalia. Thank God he lost, because it was the lesser of two evils in Minneapolis. Fry or this Fateh guy. But you're right. Zoran won. The attorney general dude in Virginia who had the nasty text messages.
Jay Jones.
Democrats, Jay Jones. You voted in a guy that literally wanted his political opponent dead and his kids harmed. Good on you, Democrats. You should be proud of yourselves. You're voting in anti-capitalist, socialist, radical Muslims and people that want to kill their political opponent over politics.
Yeah. I don't know how we got here. I will say...
I know how we got here.
Well,
our guest tonight's going to tell us how we got here. Mm-hmm. She's written books. She's given speeches. This woman has more pieces of parchment paper on the wall to prove that she is 10 times smarter than you and I every day of the week and twice on Sunday. Okay? So when you want to know something, and I've been having her on my talk show, you need to get her on yours, for almost the full 4 years I've been here at OAN, because I forget which one it was all that time ago. I probably have to ask my wife. But either I saw a clip, read some of a book, saw an interview, a bunch of things just made me go, hey, Peyton, my wife. I'm like, hey, Peyton, who is this woman? Who is this Dr. Carol Swain? And then she already knew her. She'd been following her. She was listening. Yeah, she had seen some speeches. She had seen some interviews. And she's like, this is somebody we got to get on the show. This is a voice of reason, a voice of common sense, a voice of law and order, of rule of law, of respect of each other's political differences, but she also cuts through all the BS. Like she's no DEI pusher. She's no race hustler. She's no, snake oil salesman. She's not a Bible thumper trying to sell you on religion, but she is a woman of faith. She is very well educated. She happens to be a black woman. She grew up in a different era, even than you and I, definitely further away from you than I. So her and I can relate a little bit better on the age thing as far as watching this country change over the last, for me, 5 decades. She's seen a few more years than me. But let me tell you, every time I've had her on the show, and I know I'm building her up big because I love her. She's a very, very bright woman. I feel better, not about myself.
I get that.
Or the country, because I'm still worried for her, the Republic. But I feel like if she gets it, and she's getting through to people, there's hopefully some hope still to save the Republic, to convince people to stop arguing over race and gender and social economic status and all that, and figure out and remember we're all Americans.
Amen.
We're all in this together. Mm-hmm. And you're in one big psyop because you're buying into all the infighting because you allowed the powers that be to put us in a box. Because everybody knew if they did identity politics decades ago, it would work. I think she wrote a book about that.
Is it time to bring her on? Then?
Yeah, let's bring her on, right?
It's time.
Let's bring her on.
All right.
If you don't know our next guest, she has, I think, authored or helped to author almost a dozen books. She has, there's a few.
That is a lot.
Bada bing. Wow. I've had her on, like I said, over the last 5 years, and we've talked about at least, let me see, 1, 2, 3, 4, at least 4 or 5 of those books right there, and there's more. Again, she's lectured at universities across probably more than country, probably the world. She has been cited by the United States Supreme Court at least 3 or 4 times. I'm pretty sure that she's contributed and served on several presidential appointments.
Wow.
And then here's one for you. She has 5 different degrees in different things, whether it's political science, law, you name it. She's been a professor, an associate professor, and you know me, I trash higher education a little bit because of all the scandals we've now come to find out, right? About how people are getting passed over, if you're not the right race, all the ridiculousness and we've seen the insanity on the campuses the last few months.
Absolutely.
The anti-Semitism, the anti-Americanism, all that crap. She'll be one of the first ones to join in, even though her career has evolved around higher education. But thank goodness that she was there and taking part and bearing witness and now calling out those in charge at the higher learning level. And without further ado, how about we bring on Dr. Carol Swain. Hey, Doc, how's it going?
It's going great. Thank you so much for having me on your show.
Did I build you up okay? Did I get that stuff right?
Pretty more or less, yes.
She's gonna school and educate me. I got something wrong. Okay, so
no, you didn't really get anything wrong.
Doc, Riley has never met you, so Riley, Dr. Carol Swain, hello, you too. Riley would love to get you on his talk show here on OAN in the near future.
Yes.
Because I was telling him before we went on the air here about how many different subject matters over the last 5 years since I've been here you and I have discussed, and you've done such a great job. And so before we get to all that and talk today, modern stories and politics, what's happening 2025, this is way different than the talk show you come on. We first like to start by letting you tell people who you are. And I don't even know all your background. I mean, you and I have had some private chit chats, and I can Google you like anybody else in Wikipedia, but we want our guests to tell them. So take us back to little Carol and where you were born and how you grew up, and then we'll get into the education part and talk modern times. But let's go way back and give us that backstory.
Well, first of all, my Wikipedia page is very long, and as you can imagine, it gets a lot of things wrong.
Yep.
And I was one of 12 children.
Whoa.
Born and raised in rural poverty in southwestern Virginia. All of us dropped out of school after completing the 8th grade. I married at 16, had my first child at 17. By the time I was in my early 20s, I had 3 small children. I ended up getting a high school equivalency, went to a community college and got the first of 5 degrees. My first degree was in business. I wanted to do art. My advisors told me to be practical, and so I chose business. So I have a degree in business. I have a bachelor's degree in criminal justice. I graduated magna cum laude while working 40 hours a week, nights and weekends at the community college library. I have a master's in political science from Virginia Tech, a PhD from UNC Chapel Hill. And after I had taught at Princeton for about a decade, and I was tenured there early, I went back to school. I went to Yale and I got a master's in law. And as far as my life, I was the first in my family to go to college. I never knew or sought to become a university professor. There was not a lifelong dream. People came into my life. They steered me. And the people that pushed me forward or told me to keep going and encouraged me did not look like me. So.
Wow. Now, Doc, so much to unravel there, but I just want to back up a hair and remind folks when you were doing all this, because for the young people watching this, and I would imagine most podcast viewers these days are closer to Riley's age than you and I's age, Doc, right? A lot of podcaster viewers are not over 50. The Doc was doing all this. You're born in the 50s, so you're talking about the 60s you're going through this. This is the civil rights era. This is the South is still wild and crazy. People are still getting harmed and killed. And you're one of 12, born into poverty. Everybody drops out of school, and look at what you're doing today. Now, there's lots of... Yeah, go ahead, Doc.
Started life, 2-room shack, no indoor plumbing. The poverty was such that if it snowed deeply, the weather was cold. If it snowed and it was more than 4 or 5 inches, we stayed home until the snow melted. I missed 80 of 180 school days because of not having proper clothes. But I grew up at a time when the messages out there and the messages I internalized, I was a Virginian. And I was very proud to be a Virginian because I knew that my home state was the home of presidents. I knew all about the presidents. Booker T. Washington was born about 10 miles from where I was. And I was a proud Virginian. The messages I received as a child was, if you work hard and get an education, you can make something out of yourself. And it wasn't about the government making something out of you.
Thank you.
You could make something out of yourself. And despite the poverty, my mother would not sign us. She would not allow us to take free lunches or free books, which meant I had to do my homework at school because we couldn't take the books home.
Whoa.
Wow. I do wonder, Doctor, if I may, I love this sense of agency and just proactiveness, and it's because so many people in my generation are the opposite. They're very entitled. They don't want to work. They don't want to put in the time. They don't have ambitions for their career. They don't have the kind of aspirations that I'm hearing from you. So I'm just kind of curious, like, where does that sense of drive come from?
That was my question. Yeah. Who pushed that? You said you had that influence and you had those people. So who, again, in the 50s and 60s, were influencing a young black girl to do those things? Because let's be real, the South in the 50s and 60s was racist. This country was very racist still compared to today. There weren't programs to help the black community in the 50s and 60s. So who were those positive role models giving you that push?
Well, I was born in 54 and I started school in the 1960s. And I spent the first 6 years of my education in segregated schools. And there was a sense of optimism. I did not get the negativity. And as far as the civil rights movement, I watched it on TV. And I am the only one of the 12 to reach college. We all dropped out of school. And where did it come from? All I can say is that as a child, I knew that I was different and I did not fit in my family. I felt as if I had been dropped from outer space. And
I can relate, Doc.
Really. Seriously.
I can relate. There was 5 of us boys. I can relate.
And I was terribly shy. And my mother said I used to hide behind furniture and peer out at them. And I liken it to social science research, ethnographic studies, where you are a participant observer, because I can remember watching my family members and thinking that they were odd. And I've always thought outside the box. And I've always felt as if there was something I was supposed to do. Even as a child, I had a sense of seriousness. And so where did it come from? I think it came from God. I was not born in a churched home, but my great-grandfather had been a pastor. And so if you're born in the South, you're born black and you're born Democrat. And so...
A Southern Baptist, right? Southern Baptist Democrat. That's what you're supposed to be.
They were Methodists.
Oh, Methodists. Okay, right. It was Baptist, Methodist, and Lutherans. But you had to be one of those, and you had to be a Democrat if you were black in the South. Right. I forgot the rules of the Democrat Party. But thanks for reminding us.
But the Democratic Party then was not the same as the Democratic Party today.
Well, no, they were crazy back then. Today, they're way crazier in a different way.
Well, I don't know, but I mean, Virginia was the state.
Yeah, I get what you're saying, Doc. There were common sense Democrats in the 50s and 60s you still could talk to. I was making fun of the Southern ones, the ones that started the KKK and were racist as heck. Those Democrats.
Oh, yes.
Those are the ones I meant.
You're right.
Yeah, but they were still, and I don't mean the racist ones, the Kennedy Democrats of your era, which my grandmother raised me, so I kind of came up in the 70s, 80s, a little after you with her, felt the same way. Democrats back then were still patriotic, still wanted to follow law and order, still loved America and capitalism. These Democrats today, which I don't want to jump forward to today yet with you, are crazy. They hate the country. They don't like capitalism. They don't think we should have an open border. They don't think you have to follow the rule of law, like they're Zoran Mamdamis, which we'll get to Mandani in a minute. But back to your story, because that's, to me, so amazing. I didn't know the 12 kids and dropping out of school. Okay, so first degree. Let's take it from there and go through this collegiate journey with Carol Swain, not doctor yet, who's deciding to figure out what she's going to do in her life. So take us from those teenage years, going to college, and get us through these degrees. And what was your thinking? Because before you had said, if I recall, you liked art, but then you went some different ways. So fill us in on those degrees and why you pursued those.
Well, it was out of a need to get a good job. Like my first job that I got in 1975, I worked in a garment factory where you were supposed to make production. I made production one time, and it was very difficult. And at that time, I had small children. Then I worked in nursing homes, I sold things from door to door, smoke detectors and Avon. One year I had 7 dead-end jobs. They were all dead-end jobs. And eventually the community college library, I started as a work study student. And because I was dependable and the staff that were hired by the state were not, I would always fill in when people didn't show up for work. So the library director created a full-time job for me, nights and weekends.
Wow.
And I had that job with the state for 5 years, and that enabled me to go to the four-year college, Roanoke College in Salem, Virginia. I chose criminal justice for my bachelor's degree because it did not have a lot of math in it. Math I always struggled with because I missed a lot of school when I was growing up. I missed a lot of school, and it didn't affect the reading and certain parts of education. I was able to excel, but when it came to things with math, there was a struggle. I chose criminal justice. It had 2 math requirements. I made a in one of those math classes because I dropped it when I was struggling. I sat through the class. I took all the exams with the permission of the professor, but not for credit. And then I took it the second time for credit, and I earned an A.
Wow.
And I think I made a C in my stats course. But other than that, I graduated magna cum laude, working nights and weekends. But I was working in the community college library. That was the perfect job for a student.
Wow. That's impressive.
So many questions. I'm going to let the, no, not millennial, Gen Zer. I'm going to let the Gen Zer over here. That's you, right? You're a Gen Zer?
You're
26, 27. You're a Gen Zer.
All right.
And you're the one that hammered your own age bracket a minute ago. So I'm going to let you ask the next question because I know what's going to come out of your mouth after she just told us her work ethic, her school ethic, her first time up for her first of 5 degrees. So I hope your question's the same as mine would have been.
Yeah, well, 'cause I was actually kind of curious just to go through, so criminal justice from there, because usually people do that, in my experience, because they want to go into law enforcement, forensics, something along that, or academia. So just, I'd be curious to hear your mindset about where did you see yourself going from there, and did you go down the road you thought you would, or did you just totally pivot in a different direction?
I have to confess to you guys that I was smart enough to know that if I excelled as a Black person, that I would have lots of opportunities. And I chose criminal justice because it was interesting. It only had 2 math requirements, and I knew that I could graduate with a high average. And when I enrolled in the four-year college, my advisor, who later became a friend, and he's a Republican. At that time, I was a Democrat. He told me the first day not to expect to do as well there as I had done at the community college, where I had made the dean's list a couple of times. And to me, I listened, but it was like throwing the gauntlet down. I signed up for his course. And when I started the college, the four-year college, I was met by Black students that were there. Probably about 20 students were on the campus that were Black. They told me all the professors who were racist. This professor was supposed to be racist. I signed up for his class. He gave me a B+. I think I actually made an A-, but he was not going to give anyone an A. And I made A's in all the other classes I took with him. And he told me that I was really a Republican. And at that time, it was an insult to tell a Black person like me that I was a Republican because Republicans had such a stigma.
Yes, of course, back in the day. And rightfully so. Let's be real.
Sure.
I mean, there were lots of examples, which we don't have to go down memory lane of racist Republicans, but there was a stigma because there were people in the party that were that way. And there may still be today. They're in both parties today, racist towards all sorts of folks. Yes. So you get that first one out of the way. Do you then go get into either being...
I was never interested in criminal justice as a career.
Right.
I did all the things I had to do I visited the jails. I did the studies, but I didn't see myself going into law or using the criminal justice.
Okay.
I thought I was going to do what a lot of other Black people do. I was going to work for the government. So I went to Virginia Tech. I was doing political science. I was going into the PhD public policy program. And while I was at Virginia Tech, I sort of got discovered by professors who pushed me to go into the PhD program in political science to become a professor. I had no interest in doing that because of my shyness. Plus, I just wanted a job. I wanted a job. That was why I went to college in the first place, and I didn't envision spending my life in school.
Yep.
Well, I'm kind of glad you did, Doc.
Yeah.
Because now, and I want to finish the degrees, but I'm going to jump forward to some of the books, just because when you look at the titles and the subject matters, rather, that you've written on. And when was your first book, by the way? When did you drop the first Dr. Carol Swain book? Was that in the 90s or early 2000s?
1993, and that was the book that Claudine Gay, former president of Harvard University, was so fond of that she framed her dissertation around it without adequately citing.
Oh yeah, she's going to jump ahead to. I just had her on a couple of months ago on her new book last year called "The Gay Affair," related to the president who had to step down in shame.
Really?
Yeah, and so talk about coming full circle. A book in '93 that Carol writes, and then the future president of that university steals from. Is that the alleged? I better say alleged.
That was the a prize-winning book. It won 3 national prizes, including the highest prize a political scientist can win. At the time that I won it, it was called the Woodrow Wilson Prize for Best Book in Politics and International Affairs. It was like the career prize for political scientists, and I won it, first
Black
out of the
faces,
gate.
Black interest, the representation of African Americans in Congress. That was her book. And Miss Gay loved it, right? But then fast forward.
It was a Harvard University Press book. It got lots of attention because it really showed the trade-off between Black descriptive representation and Black substantive representation. And I argued that you could have more Black faces and less Black representation, and that political party was more important than the race of the representative.
Oh,
I also
no.
argued that
You can't write that today. You said that in 93 and people liked it? Wow, how dare you?
That could get you canceled today, Doctor.
I also argued that whites would support Black candidates, and when Black candidates lost, it was because of their views and not because of their race.
Thank you.
And a couple of the Supreme Court sites were around that point. And in the concluding chapter, I talked about what would happen if Democrats lost control of the Congress. And that was 1993. And so I painted this picture of all the influence and power that would be lost. And I took a position against the creation of majority Black legislative districts. That book got me labeled as a conservative, as a sellout. And at that time, I was not a person of faith. And it really put a spotlight on me. And some of those Harvard professors that are still there engaged in attacks against me. But
they did.
Princeton supported me.
Really?
And there were enough people that supported.
And were some of those Harvard professors liberal white professors, not Black professors, or a little of both?
No, they were all. It was all of them, but
so whites and Blacks.
The white professors,
mainly whites,
and some of them were Black.
I know, but the majority were white liberals. I just got to point out how white liberals try to tell Blacks how they're supposed to feel and what they're supposed to do.
Anecdote.
Yeah, go ahead.
My first week on the campus of Princeton, new faculty member, I was invited to lunch by a person who was on the faculty of Harvard, a white woman that was at Princeton at that time. And she told me that I acted like I didn't need Black people, that I needed Black people, and that I couldn't trust whites, that they would sail me down the river. And I later found out that she had gone to various people and tried to block my appointment because she said I wasn't the right kind of Black.
See?
What?
Hear that phrase? This is what white liberals do to try and guilt smart, conservative, faith-based black people like Dr. Carol Swain.
I was not a faith-based black person back then.
I'm today because you are. Okay, I'll pull faith out.
I was not a faith-based black person. I was a good Democrat using good social science. And
not in the 90s, Carol. Not in the 90s, and definitely not 2020. Now, can you fast forward and tell them then why Miss Carol Swain wrote a book called The Gay Affair, nothing to do with homosexuality. It has to do with Miss Gay. We were talking about the former head of Harvard. You wrote one called A Gay Affair last year. Circle this all together and bring my viewers from 93 to 2024 and why this book.
I can tell you that after I got my tenure, I started becoming interested in affirmative action was the big issue in 1995. And I thought it should be class-based, race neutral. And people didn't want to hear that. The people that had supported me during the time I was out with my new book on representation, they were supporters of race-based affirmative action. And so I started becoming uncomfortable with academia, disillusioned, and my research began to sort of move in a particular direction. I stopped doing congressional studies. So I was not paying attention to Claudine Gay, but I heard about her. I kept hearing about this brilliant black woman at Harvard, and people were just sort of throwing it in my face. I had been the brilliant black woman at Princeton, and all of a sudden there was a new kid on the block. I did not pay any attention to Claudine Gay. And it was 25 years later, 25 years later, when I found out that she had plagiarized my book.
Wow.
Yeah. A lot of Democrats like doing that. Wasn't there a president recently that had to actually step down of a presidential run several years ago because he got caught? Oh, yeah, Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Anyway, before that book, how interesting you brought up critical race theory and DEI and affirmative action, because you've written books on affirmative action. You've written books on critical race theory. Matter of fact, one of the first times I had you on several years ago was Black Eye for America, how critical race theory is burning down the house.
Doctor, if I may, so I've seen this undergraduate and actually at the graduate level too in colleges. There is an obsession with CRT, DEI, diversity. I remember being in a graduate class for a master's program, by the way, and every single professor, all they wanted to talk about was diversity. I don't know where this came from. I want to know the origin story, why every university professor is just obsessed with it. And I'd kind of like to get your thoughts about the origin of it, the evolution of that obsession, and what you think it means.
Well, it wasn't always that way. During the time I was in graduate school and in academia, critical race theory and Marxist studies, all of those were present, but it didn't permeate the whole university.
Yep.
And with affirmative action, at the time that I was in college, it was about non-discrimination, equal opportunity, and outreach. And I would argue that I benefited from the Civil Rights Act of 1964 that prohibited discrimination, but it encouraged outreach. And back then, when they talked about diversity, it meant that they sent recruiters to schools that were predominantly minority, or they sought out women. They sought out people who had been shut out, but the emphasis was on talented minorities. And it was maybe easy to get your feet in the door, but not easy to stay there. And I can say that over the years, I saw so many students come in, so many people start in positions, high-ranking positions, but they did not make it. And so it's like survival of the fittest. You got your foot in the door. So diversity back then did not mean what it came to mean later. Right. And DEI was started by a white man, the whole idea of diversity.
Really?
Well, a white progressive. And I don't remember which year that it was put together as diversity, equity, and inclusion. But in my day, equal opportunity again, it meant getting your feet in the door, but you had to prove yourself.
Yeah.
It wasn't equity where everyone gets the same outcome.
You're the one that taught me that, by the way. Can I interrupt and just say that? Okay. I was ignorant, naive, uneducated. I did not really understand the difference of this new verbiage that the Democrats and the white liberals started playing on the American people several years back until I met the doc. And she went, equality is a good thing, like back in the day when all you wanted was a fair shake and a seat at the table, and then meritocracy took over in the military, at your job, on the university. That's her era. That's my era. That's what it used to be. Then they switched from equality to equity, where you're guaranteed something and you didn't do squat. And she told me, watch it, Dan. They're going to start using it all the time. And that was back in about, 2020, 2021. You and I met. You were coming on the show, and she goes, watch, they're going to use it. And over the last 5 years, what have you seen the Democrat Party and liberals do? Barely use the word equality anymore, but say equity all the time. And demand
they abandoned integration. Back in my day, the whole idea was to bring in people from groups that had been marginalized, and they would become a part of the whole, a part of the team. They would be integrated, and the term assimilation, it was not negative. I mean, all of this was positive.
No, assimilation should be a positive thing. Whether you're coming from, whether you're a Black American or you're coming over from India or some Asian country or Latin American, I don't care where you're from, whether you're born here or not, you come here, you do assimilate. You want to become this American. You're like me. You're an Italian American. You're an Indian American. You're a Black American. If you actually came from the continent of Africa, you're an African American, but you assimilate to our customs and ways. And then if you want to get ahead, you better have some merit-based background to get ahead, not just because the color of your skin or your sexual orientation or your gender. And that's the way it used to be, but it's not anymore. Equity over equality.
They changed all that in the most racist way.
Thank you. Let's go there. Let's go there for a minute.
They lowered standards, and we got, in recent years, from the Gates Foundation funded studies that math is racist. Like, I always struggled with math. I took remedial math at the community college. I worked really hard. Math is hard for someone that missed a lot of school, but math is not racist.
Thank you. And it's hard for people that went to school. I got C's. I could never get above a C with geometry and algebra. I didn't get it. My daughter struggles with it. I just don't get or like math.
Well, it's just ironic because the DEI thing was supposed to bring us together, and obviously it's been very divisive. And now that it's spreading across,
I don't think it was supposed to bring us together.
It was never meant to bring us together.
She'll tell you.
I don't believe it ever was.
Thank you. So it was meant to divide us.
Okay, so please explain that.
She'll tell you why.
Please.
The progressive whites, that they have pushed all of this stuff, and they are among the most racist people I ever encountered in academia. And I always got along with the conservatives, and they held everyone to the same standards. They encouraged, like, my mentors disproportionately were, they were white men for the most part because they were the ones that were there. But I was never made to feel like I couldn't do.
Yeah.
And I can tell you that when I got to graduate school, that was when I encountered all those theories of oppression.
Same.
That's where I learned that I was
So wait a minute. Hold on. Whoa. Stop the phone. So a decade or decades later, after not experiencing as much racism growing up where you grew up, in the area you grew up, you endured more racism in later years while going to Ivy League schools by liberal white progressives. Did I hear that right, Doc?
Well, what you heard is that when I got to the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in graduate school, that's when I started encountering theories of oppression. And there, I learned that, I'm Black, I'm poor, I'm a woman, that I was not supposed to have done any of the things that I had accomplished. And I would say that by then it was too late. I knew what I could do. It did not deter me, but for some people it would be poison.
Yeah.
So the DEI, when I was in graduate school, it was not as big as it became later. And I would say that after President Obama was elected in 2008, that's when DEI just exploded everywhere.
Yep.
I always said he started and he reignited a race war that wasn't there. I'm sorry.
That's true.
Thank you, Doc, for agreeing with me on that one. I firmly believe Barack Hussein Obama reignited, let me repeat it for the cheap seat liberals, reignited a race war in America that did not exist any longer. We did not have institutional racism anymore. There's how many programs and funds and colleges that are set aside specifically for the black community, not for the white, not for the Asian, not for the Mexican community. So to say that everything's racist in the 8 years he was in and everybody's still racist and all this crap he was throwing out, I'm like, that's not the reality out on Main Street. You're saying it up on Constitutional Ave, but guess what? In Main Street, I didn't give two you-know-whats in the 90s when I was in the military if the airman next to me was black or brown or yellow.
Completely.
He didn't care I was white.
Completely.
And I'm talking about the 90s even. And you even said you didn't experience as much in the 60s and 70s working your way through. You get to college, you meet these progressive liberals, just like in politics today or in the workplace or even at the hierarchy in our brass in the military. And now they're all this woke DEI and CRT crap where you've got to have not just I want to call it a leg up, but assistance. You should be handed something now because you're either gay, a woman, black, brown, yellow. And oh, by the way, the oppressor is the evil, straight, white Christian guy. I'm the evil guy now, Doc.
Well, that's the thing, Doc. When I was growing up, I never thought about race. It was never on my mind, not even once.
You're only 26, 27.
The point, of course, but still, there's for 20 plus years of my life, never thought about it once. And I grew up in San Diego, California. Pretty diverse place on the planet. Lots of different cultures here.
Oh, yeah.
Mexican food, Thai, Vietnamese, all next door to each other. Like, San Diego's pretty diverse.
Yeah.
But elementary school, never once. Middle school, not even a little bit. High school, not really still. And then college, all of a sudden.
There you go.
Every day I'm being lectured about my whiteness.
There you go.
Yes.
And I don't understand why.
See that? Well, she'll tell you why.
Well, I can tell you that the inclusion, the whole idea of inclusion, it's not the same as integration. Those, with inclusion, people were encouraged to think of themselves as parts of groups, not individuals. You had to to advance, you had to focus on your group membership. And in academia, I ran into a lot of problems. And some of it was because I chose not to be part of African American studies. I was never a part of African American studies. At Princeton, I chose the Woodrow Wilson School and Department of Politics.
Wow.
At Vanderbilt, I was the law school, a joint appointment in the law school and political science. I was not active in women's studies, and so I did not have value to them as a Black person. If you're Black or racial and ethnic minority, or you have to belong to a group, you just can't be yourself.
Right.
And so it made for a very uncomfortable position because I did feel devalued by the environment that force you into a box, and if you didn't get into the box, you were marginalized.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting, by the way. I'm sorry to hear that, doctor. I am. That's not right.
Well, here's the whole thing.
It's not right.
This is one of the main reasons I wanted her on for this long discussion. I'm hoping that she can open some folks' eyes. She can encourage some young people. She can maybe break through the liberal crust of some people that have been set in their ways, thinking that blacks have to be this way and whites have to be this way because that's the way it is. No, it's not. You've been lied to. You've been lied to by a sitting president for 8 years. You've been lied to by a party. You've been lied to by the mainstream media. You've been lied to by your professor.
Yeah, so doctor, because that's all true.
Yeah.
And to just piggyback on that point, I'd like to hear your advice for kids who are in school right now, or even parents, grandparents, family members who see their kids they're so isolated, they're ostracized. You can see the disunity on campuses these days. Yeah. I mean, Charlie Kirk was assassinated on a college campus. What is happening to colleges? Yeah. How do we fix them?
And how are the kids going to keep their identity so they don't get put in that box and say, oh, you got to be labeled this because you're this color or this gender?
Totally.
How do they keep that individuality that you did, that you had such drive and still patriotism, hardworking ethics. Like, you got all that. Kids today don't. They're getting brainwashed by these professors. How do you keep them on that track, that path you were on, so they don't get brainwashed those 4 years?
Well, first of all, I have to remind you that I was a Democrat up until 2000, early 2000s, and I left after I had a Christian conversion experience, and I gradually became more and more conservative. And I left academia in 2017. Part of the catalyst for that was I wrote an opinion piece. I left in 2017. I wrote an opinion piece in 2015 criticizing Islam. It created a firestorm. There we go. I ended up being, there was a campus protest, there was a change.org, a petition.
This is on Vanderbilt? On Vanderbilt they came out after you? Because you called out how radical the Islamic faith can be and the Muslim Brotherhood.
We need another hour.
Yeah, we need 2 hours.
I told you. I was so right.
We're only like 6-7 minutes away from almost an hour here, and I told you need more with her.
I was so right about everything. I mean, I know that's not very...
That sounded fine, dear, because I'm telling you what, you've got the stats to back up that kind of statement. That you have been right. I mean, come on, let's do some more of these books if we're running out of time, because you've written books on your faith and about that.
And my books are considered prophetic, and I became a person of faith late in life, but I was always spiritual, and I had strangers come up to me in my early 20s, late teens, and at least 3 times strangers came up to me and they said, you know, you're going to be famous someday. There was nothing about my situation that any of that made sense. And when I look at my success and how far I've come from the poverty, I do give credit to God. And I believe that he opened that door for me to be at Princeton. And it was like, I was there. I saw what takes place in the back rooms. They gave me the good housekeeping seal of approval. I got early tenure. And I was so disillusioned by it. And that led to my conversion experience, because I had worked so hard to get it, and it was so empty and it was so meaningless. That led to the spiritual journey that took me through New Age and Eastern religions towards Christianity. And I became a devout believer in 2000. To me, that's one of the most important things that about me, because it shapes everything I do. People see me as being courageous, and I know that God gave me my platform, and I refuse to be coward and to live in fear the way people would have us do.
Yes. Amen.
Amen. And
love that.
What was your... I'd be so curious to hear your critique about Islam. How did you frame that? I want to know more about the backlash.
That's going to take a lot. You got to make this one quick, Doc, because I know you and I both have lots to say about Islam, and I'm very worried about this nation today on how we've forgotten what happened 24 years ago in New York, at the Pentagon, and in that field at Shanksville, Pennsylvania, and the ones that want us dead, and the quiet, peaceful ones that won't speak up against the radical ones. Take it away, Doc, and give our viewers a warning.
It was January 15th, 2015. And that was a week after the Charlie Hebdo killings in France, where the cartoonists were murdered.
Yes.
And my opening sentence was something like, what would it take to make us realize that Islam is not like any other religions, that it poses a danger to us unless, the people we're bringing in are properly vetted. And I criticized the Obama administration for bringing in so many people that were not vetted. I ended with saying that the Muslims coming to our country needed to respect our Constitution, our free speech, and pretty much our way of life.
What's wrong with that? Sounds right to me.
It does.
But I know. Shame on you. You cannot be a Ivy League educated black woman and say those kind of things, Doc, because that's not the script that you're supposed to say. You're supposed to brag Obama up. You're supposed to say Muslims are fine. You're supposed to say that DEI is great. All these things you're supposed to say. Don't you get sick and tired of hearing white liberal people tell you what you're supposed to think and do and say, Doc?
That article is January 2015. If you were to look at the terrorist attacks that have occurred on American soil since then. And I pointed out that Islam was not like the other religions, that it did pose a danger. And I have been proven correct.
Yes, you have.
Yep.
I did not know that the op-ed piece would sort of lead to the end of my career. I knew the day after it was published that my life was over as I knew it. And I had to leave academia and reinvent myself.
Wow.
Yeah.
As the liberals' worst nightmare.
Nice little throw that in there. I like that, Doc. All right, we just got about 2 minutes left, so I want to kind of wrap things up with you. One, tell them where we can find these amazing, nearly dozen books on anything, everything, rather from, I missed a few, I'm going to throw a bunch out speed round here. Be the People, A Call to Reclaim America's Faith and Promise. How about that one? Debating Immigration, all the way back from 2007, she wrote that one. She knew, like she said, she's very prophetic here. This is a prophet we're sitting with. Contemporary Voices of White Nationalism in America, all the way back in 2003. The New White Nationalism in America, its challenges to integration, race versus class, 96. I mean, Doc's been writing on this stuff. Here's a great one, 2016. The title's Abduction, How Liberalism Steals Our Children's Hearts and Minds.
Whoa.
Another one in 16, Who's Stealing Our Kids, Revealing the Hidden Agenda. And then one more, 2021, Countercultural Living, What Jesus Has to Say About Life, Marriage, Race, Gender, and Materialism. I mean, Get some of these books, read some of her writings. It's not like, 3 presidential different appointments, the Supreme Court's citing her. This is somebody, this to me, this woman here, this should be somebody that gets like in our chronicles of history so people can study 100 years from now and say, okay, here's someone that society and liberals and Democrats said, you shouldn't make it because you were black, female, and born poor as heck in the 50s. And look at it.
Funny thing about that is that someone someone told me that that I would be remembered in history, but I would be recognized, but it wouldn't be in my lifetime. So who knows? And starting Monday through Christmas, Logos Bookstore in Nashville, and I will be posting about this on my social media. They're offering a 30% discount on my books, and people can purchase books that are signed and personalized. They're shipped out from a local Christian bookstore in Nashville.
Yeah, that's where you're based, right, Doc? You're in Nashville, right?
Yes.
Yeah, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the Anchormen podcast, giving us almost an hour tonight of your valuable time, your knowledge, your insight. You know I love you. That's why I like having you on my show.
Much.
You're so great. Do me a solid real quick, and I'll give Riley your information. Do his talk show.
All right. Thank you.
All right. Dr. Carol Swain, thank you. God bless you. Take care, dear. How about that?
Wow.
Did you get some education tonight, Riley?
A real textbook underachiever.
Yeah. 5 degrees.
If I may say so.
Told her whole life by white liberals, you're never going to make it.
Only 12 books, Dan.
Only 12. One of 12 kids.
Yeah. Wow.
All drops out 8th grade. High school.
What I do really love, though, having the sense of faith-based fearlessness. Do not let the mob intimidate you into being quiet. Don't let them take away your fire or your vigor or your patriotic spirit. That's what they tried to do.
Can you just think about what she came under fire, though?
Yes.
In her era.
Yes, of course.
Dude, she said she was born in 1954.
Yes.
Think about how Virginia and the South were so damn racist back then still. You had segregated bathrooms and people still probably, maybe not in Virginia, but the Deep South getting lynched and things. It was horrific still in the 50s and 60s. Yep. And she didn't waver. And she was a Democrat, but she was still, you heard her, I was still patriotic. She was still happy to be an American. Where'd that go today in 2025 from some in the black community? They drank the Kool-Aid. No, that's not racist. They drank the liberal Kool-Aid to believe you're never going to get anywhere because the color of your skin, you were born in inner city Chicago in the ghetto, and you can either only, throw a ball or deal drugs or rap. You have no future. Talk to Dr. Carol Swain, tell me you've got no future because you're black, brown, yellow, female, gay, poor. Forget color and race. You're poor, so you're never going to make it. I grew up dirt-ass poor.
Yep.
I'm not saying I'm Tucker Carlson, but I'm doing okay in life. I ain't Sean Hannity. I'm not making millions, but I had people at 5 telling me with my little paper towel thing with aluminum foil on to like a microphone. I would walk around at 5 or 6 and do little reports like I was a news guy. And they're like, you're going to be famous someday. And I'm like, whatever.
Yeah.
Hey, Doc, I didn't change being patriotic. I didn't change being a conservative Republican. I've never been a liberal Democrat. I didn't change from my goals because somebody told me I wouldn't get there because I was poor or uneducated. Obviously, I didn't have to deal with the gender or the race thing, being a woman or a minority. But let's be real. Poor is poor.
Yeah.
It doesn't know a race or a sexual orientation or a gender or anything. It knows you're poor.
Yeah.
And she right there is one of the best examples of any human being I've ever met in my entire life where I don't want to hear, no offense from your generation, I don't want to hear any young people piss and moan. I can't. Like, I'm going to make my daughter watch this one. I don't hear, how am I going to work a part-time job while going to college and this and this?
No.
She worked a full-time job.
Amen.
Overnights and weekends, full-time school, then 4 more degrees, 12 books. Shut your mouth, never complain.
Agreed. And not to make it, this is not an excuse at all. However, I do think it's important to note, because this is real, you look at Gen Z, who raised them, people that gave them participation trophies.
Good
so
point.
To be fair, I think this is a product of coddling kids. So if there's a key takeaway, trust kids with responsibility. Stop making it so easy for them. Stop coddling kids. There are people my age and younger who don't know how to do anything. Boil water, change a tire, read a map. And because no one taught them how to do that.
That's a great point, Riley.
To be fair,
So throw it back on the
taught them
parents
how to
too.
shave or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like it's on us all. We have to be better as a country, as a people. We
There
do.
you go. That's a great way to end it. Thank you, Riley. Dr. Carol Swain is her name. If you didn't learn enough tonight, look her up. There's lots of research to do. She will inspire. She will motivate. The books, I've read a couple of them that she's been on my show to discuss. They're amazing. Like I said, and she reiterated, she might not go down in the chronicles of American history today while she's alive, but in the future, I'm telling you, if those, I'm trying to watch my language, if those jerks at the Ivy League schools in 50, 70, 100 years aren't teaching about Dr. Carol Swain, shame on you at Harvard and Princeton and Columbia, all you snotty liberals, because she's way better of a person than you are. I'll let you close it out tonight. I love her.
Be sure to like, subscribe. We're on YouTube, Rumble, X, Facebook, Truth Social. We're just all over the place, and we want to hear from you. So if you have questions, comments, concerns, any kind of feedback, including guest suggestions, please let us know down below in the description.
I think I know who's next week, possibly.
Really?
Possibly. There's 2 possibilities here. We could split it up and
should we tease,
do 2
or do you
guests.
not wanna...
Well, here's one who already said yes. The pro-life Spider-Man. Mason DeChamps.
Yeah.
Yes, Mason, who climbs buildings and then puts the signs up for. He said yes, and our friend conservative rapper
in Vegas.
Yes,
is that him?
Yeah, they're still suing him because they said he damaged some of the crystals. He did not. Anywho, he said he could do it, but also I got confirmation from our friend conservative rapper Forgiato Blow.
Nice.
So we might have to either comment on Truth X, YouTube TV, everywhere we post this, and say, I want this guy, that gal, whatever. Give us your suggestions. We'll be back next Friday night. I think we drop these at 7 o'clock every night on Truth X and YouTube TV channel. Thank you so much. As he said, for all things OAN, go to OANN.com. That's the website. That'll also show you what platforms we're now broadcasting on, because we are bigger and back. We didn't build back better like Joe. We took back what was ours as they tried to cancel and censor us for years. So as always, big thank you to Robert Herring, Mr. H, the boss man, and the Herring Network here. We love them. They are family. And also thanks to Grunt Style for sponsoring our little Anchormen podcast. Riley, we'll see you at 6 p.m., me at 8, Matt at 9, Chanel after that at 10. Thank you so much. God bless.
Want to see more great videos like this? Click on the link below to subscribe to OAN Live and watch Dan Ball's Real America and The Matt Gaetz Show on Dish Channel 212. Tune in, subscribe, and watch today.